My fiancé cheated with my brother. I destroyed them both at our wedding. Not exactly the kind of thing you plan for when you're picking out floral arrangements and arguing with your future mother-in-law about the seating chart, but here we are. Let me back up a bit. 3 months ago, I was living the dream. Engaged to Jake, my college sweetheart, planning our dream wedding, and working my way up at a marketing firm that actually paid me enough to afford both rent and the occasional avocado toast. Life was good. Perfect even. The kind of perfect that should have made me suspicious. You know that feeling when something's just a little off? Like when you walk into your apartment and your favorite coffee mug is on the wrong shelf? Or your car seat is adjusted just slightly differently than how you left it? That's how it started. Little things. Jake working late more often. My brother Ethan suddenly becoming super invested in our wedding plans when he'd previously shown all the enthusiasm of a cat being bathed. I ignored it all because, well, who wants to be that person? That paranoid, suspicious fiancé checking phone records and sniffing shirts for strange perfume. Not me. I had more self-respect than that. Or so I thought. It was a Tuesday when my perfect life imploded. Nothing special about Tuesdays. They're not dramatic like Mondays or celebratory like Fridays. Just boring, forgettable Tuesdays. Except I'll remember this particular Tuesday until the day they put me in the ground. I'd left work early with a migraine that felt like someone was using my eye socket as a jackhammer testing site. All I wanted was my bed, my blackout curtains, and the prescription meds that made me drool in my sleep but killed the pain. I didn't call ahead because, well, why would I? It was my apartment too. The pain must have dulled my senses because I was halfway down the hallway to our bedroom before I heard it. The laugh. My brother's laugh. In my bedroom. With my fiancé. Have you ever had a moment where your body knows the truth before your brain catches up? My stomach dropped to somewhere around my ankles. My palms went instantly clammy. And yet my brain was still offering helpful alternative explanations. They're planning a surprise for you. They're moving furniture. They weren't moving furniture? I stood in that hallway for what felt like eternity, but was probably only seconds, listening to the unmistakable sounds of betrayal coming from behind my own bedroom door. The door with the stupid "Love lives here" sign Jake's mom had given us last Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on me even through the migraine fog. I didn't burst in screaming. I didn't throw things. I simply turned around, grabbed my purse, and walked out as quietly as I'd come in. My body moved on autopilot while my brain struggled to process what my ears had confirmed. My fiancé, my brother, in our bed. I drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks away, ordered a latte I couldn't taste, and sat staring at the wall for 2 hours. The barista probably thought I was having some kind of breakdown. She wasn't wrong. The weird thing about catastrophic betrayal? It's physically painful. My chest felt like someone had reached in and was slowly pulling my ribs apart. My migraine, ironically, had vanished, replaced by a strange crystal clarity that felt almost like being high. Colors were too bright, sounds too sharp. Everything felt hyper-real yet completely detached, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. My phone buzzed 14 times, Jake wondering where I was. Acting normal, acting concerned. The absolute audacity. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and booked a hotel room. Then I texted my best friend, Mia. Need to crash with you for a while. Emergency. Details later. No crying. Not yet. Just tactical moves, one after another, like I was playing chess against an opponent who didn't know we were in a game. When I finally checked my phone, there were the expected messages from Jake. Where are you? Getting worried, babe. Everything okay? Working late tonight? Don't wait up. That last one sent a laugh bubbling up from somewhere dark inside me. Working late. Sure. The same working late he'd been doing with my brother. My brother, Ethan. My only sibling. The person who'd taught me to ride a bike and threatened my high school boyfriend when he'd stood me up for prom. That brother was sleeping with my fiancé. The family group chat showed my mom asking about our final RSVP count for the wedding. The wedding that was supposed to happen in 8 weeks. The wedding I'd spent a year planning. The wedding that had already cost my parents a deposit they couldn't really afford on a venue with a no refunds policy. That's when the rage hit. Not the hot, explosive kind that makes you throw plates and scream obscenities. No, this was cold, Arctic. The kind of anger that doesn't need to raise its voice because it's too busy making plans. They thought they could do this to me? They thought I would just be the sad, embarrassed ex-fiancé who cancels her wedding and slinks away while everyone whispers about what she did wrong? Oh, honey, not this time. I ordered another coffee and opened a new document on my laptop. At the top I typed, "the plan," because there would be a plan, and it would be glorious. I stayed at Mia's that night, and the next, offering only the bare minimum explanation, "Jake's cheating on me, with Ethan." Her stunned face would have been comical in any other situation, but her immediate, "What do you need?" was exactly why she's been my best friend since 3rd grade. What I needed was time. Time to think. Time to plan. Time to decide exactly how I wanted to dismantle the lives of the 2 men who thought they could treat me like a joke. On day 3, I finally returned Jake's increasingly frantic texts with a simple, "Sorry, had to help my mom with a family emergency. Be home tomorrow." His relief was palpable even through text. He had no idea I knew. Neither of them did. And that was my first advantage. I went back to our apartment when I knew Jake would be at work. I packed enough clothes to get by, my important documents, and the family heirloom jewelry my grandmother had given me for the wedding. As I was leaving, I noticed the framed photo of Jake and me in Cabo last year, the one where he's kissing my cheek and I'm laughing. I removed it from the frame and ripped it precisely down the middle, separating us forever. Then I put his half back in the frame and left it there, facing the door. A little preview of coming attractions. The next few weeks were a masterclass in acting. I returned home, pretended everything was normal, kissed Jake hello and goodbye, asked about his day, continued wedding planning with an enthusiasm that should have won me an Oscar, all while watching, gathering evidence, noticing patterns, like how Jake's Thursday work meetings always coincided with Ethan's gym nights, how they texted constantly but never when I was in the room, how Ethan would casually ask about Jake's schedule during family dinners, as if he didn't already know exactly where my fiancé would be and when. I started keeping a log, dates, times, inconsistencies in their stories. I set up a little insurance policy too, a small motion-activated camera disguised as a phone charger in our bedroom. Illegal? Probably. Justified? Absolutely. It took only 3 days to get what I needed. The footage made me physically ill, but I transferred it to a secure cloud account and deleted it from my phone. Evidence secured. During my lunch breaks, I researched. Did you know most wedding vendor contracts have clauses about what happens if there's a material change to the wedding? Or that most venues have very specific rules about behavior that would justify immediate removal from the premises? I didn't either, until I spent hours reading the fine print of every contract I'd signed. I visited our venue, the elegant historic hotel downtown that had been my dream location since I was a teenager. I sat down with the event coordinator, a woman named Patricia with immaculate silver hair and a no-nonsense attitude. "I have concerns," I told her, keeping my voice steady, "about some potential disruptions at the wedding." Patricia's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. "What kind of disruptions?" I spun a careful story about family drama, about concerns that certain revelations might come to light during the reception. I asked detailed questions about the hotel's policies on guest behavior, on privacy, on their security procedures. By the end of our conversation, Patricia was looking at me with something between suspicion and admiration. "You know," she said finally, "in 20 years of coordinating weddings, I've never had a bride quite like you." I smiled, the first genuine smile in weeks. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It was meant as one," she replied, sliding a business card with her personal cell number written on the back. "Call me directly if you need anything else." As I walked out of that meeting, something shifted inside me. The pain was still there, a constant throbbing reminder of betrayal, but alongside it was something new, something like power. They thought they were so clever, Jake and Ethan, with their secret affair and their lies. They thought I was oblivious, planning my fairy tale wedding while they made a fool of me behind my back. But they'd made a crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. They'd forgotten who I was before I was Jake's fiancé or Ethan's sister. They'd forgotten I was the girl who organized a school-wide walkout when our principal tried to cancel prom, the woman who single-handedly saved her department during last year's company restructuring by presenting an alternative budget plan so thorough the CEO personally commended me. I don't lose. I never have, and I wasn't about to start now. 2 weeks before the wedding, Jake asked if I was okay. "You seem different," he said, studying my face with what looked like genuine concern. The audacity of his fake worry made my skin crawl. I kissed him and blamed wedding stress, watched the relief flood his features. He suggested a date night to help me relax. I suggested we invite Ethan along, since he's been so helpful with the wedding planning. The panic that flashed across Jake's face was delicious. "He's probably busy," he stammered. "Let's check." I said cheerfully, already texting my brother. The three of us ended up at dinner, me watching their discomfort grow as I made increasingly pointed comments about loyalty and family and secrets. To family, I toasted at one point, raising my wine glass. The people who know us best. And sometimes know parts of us no one else does. Jake choked on his drink. Ethan's face went white. I smiled and took a sip of my wine. 1 week before the wedding, everything was in place. The venue was prepped. The vendors were briefed. The guests were confirmed. My dress, a new one, not the one Jake had seen in photos, was altered to perfection. My parents called daily, excited about the wedding, oblivious to what was coming. I hated lying to them, but they'd understand soon enough. My mom kept saying how happy she was that I'd found such a good man, and that Ethan had really stepped up to help with the wedding, if she only knew. The night before our rehearsal dinner, I lay in bed beside Jake, listening to his steady breathing as he slept peacefully beside me. The same Jake who had touched my brother with those hands, who had made promises to me with the same mouth he'd used to whisper to Ethan. I didn't sleep at all that night. I watched the ceiling and mentally reviewed my plan one last time, checking for weaknesses, for potential failures, for anything I might have missed. There were none. Tomorrow the show would begin. The rehearsal dinner was a special kind of psychological torture. Sitting at a long table in an upscale restaurant, surrounded by people who thought they were celebrating love, while I knew they were actually witnesses to an elaborate con. The way Jake's hand rested possessively on my lower back. The way Ethan avoided direct eye contact while simultaneously watching our every move. The pitying smiles from relatives who whispered about how I'd finally landed a good one after all those bad relationships in college. If they only knew. My maid of honor, Mia, was the only one who sensed something was off. She cornered me in the bathroom between the salad and main course. "You're scaring me," she whispered, eyes searching mine. "You're smiling too much." I adjusted my earring in the mirror, admiring how steady my hands were. "I'm getting married tomorrow. I'm supposed to smile. This isn't your real smile. This is your I'm about to burn everything down smile." She crossed her arms. "The one you had before you destroyed Rebecca Wilson's reputation in senior year after she spread those rumors about you." I turned to face her, dropping the facade for just a moment. Rebecca deserved what she got. And Jake? Ethan? What do they deserve? Exactly what they're going to get. Mia's expression shifted from concern to resignation. "Just tell me you're not doing anything illegal." I reapplied my lipstick, a shade darker than I usually wore. "Define illegal," she groaned. "That's not reassuring. Don't worry. I've considered all the legal implications." I tucked my lipstick back into my clutch. I might bend a few ethical boundaries, but nothing that would look bad in a courtroom. "Jesus," Mia muttered. "At least tell me you're being careful." I smiled at her, a real smile this time. When have I ever not been careful? Back at the table, Jake's father was giving an emotional toast about welcoming me to the family, about the special bond between his son and my brother, about how rare it was to see two men so close. The irony nearly made me choke on my champagne. Ethan caught my eye across the table, looking almost guilty? "Too little, too late, big brother." Under the table, my phone buzzed. A text from Patricia, the venue coordinator. "Everything confirmed for tomorrow. Special accommodations in place as discussed." Perfect. Later that night, back at our apartment, Jake tried to follow that outdated tradition of not seeing the bride before the wedding. "I'll stay at Ethan's tonight," he said, packing an overnight bag. "It'll make tomorrow more special. I bet it will." "Actually," I countered, touching his arm lightly, "I thought I'd be the one to go. Girls' night with Mia and the bridesmaids. You know, one last hurrah." He looked relieved. Of course he did. One last night with my brother before becoming my husband. The audacity of these men was truly breathtaking. "That makes more sense," he agreed, already texting someone. "Ethan, no doubt. I'll miss you, though." "Will you?" I asked, letting just a hint of edge creep into my voice. He looked up, confused. "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" I kissed him softly one last time. "No reason? See you at the altar." I didn't go to Mia's. Instead, I checked into the bridal suite at our venue a day early. I'd told Patricia I wanted time to center myself before the ceremony, to soak in the atmosphere of where I'd be making the most important commitment of my life. She'd been more than accommodating. Alone in that elegant suite, I spread my materials across the king-sized bed that I should have been sharing with Jake the following night. My laptop, my phone, a stack of manila folders containing printed emails, text screenshots, bank statements, and the coup de grace, select still images from the bedroom camera footage, carefully chosen to be explicit enough to remove all doubt, but not so graphic they couldn't be displayed in a public setting. My wedding vows, torn up and rewritten 6 times until they were perfect. A USB drive containing a meticulously edited video presentation. And a bottle of very expensive scotch, which I opened immediately. The scotch burned going down, but it was nothing compared to the fire that had been burning inside me for weeks. I wasn't getting drunk. I needed a clear head for tomorrow. Just one glass to steady my nerves as I reviewed everything one last time. First, I checked my emails. Confirmations from the DJ about the special playlist, and technical accommodations for my surprise presentation. The photographer understanding they needed to focus on specific guests during certain moments. The catering staff aware that the champagne toast would happen earlier than originally planned. Then I reviewed the guest list, mentally categorizing each person. Jake's family, collateral damage but unavoidable. My family, same. Friends who deserve to know the truth. Colleagues who I'd have to face on Monday. Jake's boss, who had a notorious zero-tolerance policy for workplace romance drama. Ethan's new clients. The conservative family whose business he'd been desperate to land. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Can't wait for tomorrow. I love you." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the email from my lawyer confirming that everything I planned was technically legal, if ethically questionable. "As long as the evidence was obtained in your shared residence," she'd written, "and the presentation doesn't include explicit images visible to minors, you're within your rights." The prenup Jake had insisted on, to protect his assets, he'd claimed, worked in my favor now. I hadn't fought it at the time, partly because I had my own money, partly because I'd actually believed we'd be together forever. Funny how things work out. I took another sip of scotch and stared at the ceiling, thinking about how I'd gotten here. Not just the betrayal, the years before it. 8 years with Jake. 8 years of building a life together, of holiday dinners and inside jokes and planning for a future that now seemed like a cruel mirage. And Ethan, my brother, my only sibling, the person who'd held my hand at our grandmother's funeral, who'd taught me to drive stick shift in an empty parking lot when I was 16, who'd called me every Sunday during my freshman year of college when I was too overwhelmed and homesick to function. For the first time since discovering their betrayal, I felt tears threatening. Not sad tears, angry ones. Because that was the worst part. They hadn't just stolen my future, they'd poisoned my past. Every memory was now suspect. Every shared moment potentially a lie. How long had it been going on? Was I the punchline of some ongoing joke between them? Had they laughed about me, poor oblivious me, planning my dream wedding while they sneaked around behind my back? The thought was like acid, burning through whatever fragments of love I still carried for either of them. I wiped my eyes roughly and refocused on my plans. This wasn't about healing. It wasn't even about closure. It was about justice, consequences, making damn sure they never forgot what they'd done and who they'd done it to. My phone buzzed again. Ethan this time. "Everything good? You need anything for tomorrow?" The sheer nerve. I almost admired it. Almost. I typed back, "All good. Just finishing my vows. Making some last-minute changes." His response came quickly, "Don't stress. It'll be perfect." Yes. Yes, it would. I closed my laptop and organized my materials back into their folder. Tomorrow would require precision timing and flawless execution. No room for error or second thoughts. Sleep came surprisingly easily that night. The kind of deep, dreamless sleep that comes with absolute certainty. Morning arrived with a soft knock on my suite door, my makeup artist and hairstylist right on schedule. I greeted them with genuine enthusiasm. Looking my absolute best was an essential part of today's performance. The usual bridal glow, my makeup artist commented as she set up her station. If only she knew. For the next 2 hours, I was transformed. Hair swept into an elegant updo, makeup subtle but flawless, emphasizing my eyes that would need to be exceptionally expressive today. As they worked, my bridesmaids arrived one by one, filling the suite with excited chatter and mimosas. Mia watched me carefully, sensing my unnatural calm. When the others were distracted with selfies, she whispered, "Last chance to call this off. We could be in Bali by tonight." I squeezed her hand. "I need to do this." "I know," she sighed. "Just remember I've got bail money saved up just in case." I laughed, a real laugh that felt foreign in my chest. "It won't come to that. My mother arrived as I was stepping into my dress, not the original one, but a last-minute replacement that had cost a fortune and been worth every penny. Where the first dress had been traditional, romantic, a princess fantasy in ivory lace, this one was architectural, modern, with clean lines and a structured silhouette in stark white. A warrior's dress. You changed your dress, my mother observed, her expression confused. What happened to the lace one we chose? I wanted something different, I said simply, something more me. She studied my face for a long moment, that mother's intuition sensing undercurrents she couldn't quite name. You look beautiful, she finally said. But are you okay, sweetheart? You seem... I'm fine, Mom. Just focused. I kissed her cheek, breathing in her familiar perfume, momentarily regretful about what I was about to put her through. It's a big day. The biggest, she agreed, squeezing my hands. I'm so proud of you. That nearly broke me. I turned away, pretending to adjust my veil, blinking rapidly to clear the sudden moisture from my eyes. I couldn't afford emotions now. Not yet. The hours ticked by in a surreal blur, bridesmaids fluttering around me, photographers capturing candid moments of me reading a letter from Jake that made my stomach turn with its lies about forever and fidelity. My father arriving, looking uncomfortable in his tux but beaming with pride. Ready to do this, kiddo? He asked, offering his arm. Yes, absolutely. The venue was stunning. A historic hotel with soaring ceilings and walls of windows overlooking the city. White roses and greenery transformed the space into something ethereal. 200 guests filled the rows of white chairs, all turned expectantly toward the doors where I would soon appear. From my hiding spot, I could see Jake at the altar, handsome in his tux, smiling and joking with his groomsmen, with Ethan, my brother, standing beside my fiancé, both of them looking for all the world like the perfect picture of groom and best man. Brother and brother-in-law to be. Patricia appeared at my elbow. Everything's set, she murmured. The AV team tested the system this morning. The timing is confirmed with the DJ and the catering staff. As discussed, I nodded, suddenly unable to speak, not from doubt, but from the overwhelming reality of what I was about to do. This wasn't just ending a relationship or exposing a betrayal. This was tactical destruction. This was burning my own life down to ensure theirs went up in flames, too. Are you sure about this? Patricia asked, her professional demeanor slipping just slightly to reveal genuine concern. Was I? I thought of all the paths not taken. I could walk away now. Cancel the wedding? Cite cold feet? Avoid the public spectacle? I could confront them privately, scream and cry and throw things behind closed doors like betrayed women are expected to do. I could even forgive them, swallow my pride along with the bitter truth, go through with the marriage and pretend I never knew. Each alternative tasted like ash in my mouth. I'm sure, I said. The music started, not the traditional wedding march I'd originally chosen, but a hauntingly beautiful instrumental piece that built slowly, tension in every note. My subtle first clue that this wasn't going to be the wedding anyone expected. My bridesmaids proceeded down the aisle one by one, Mia last, giving me one final look of support mixed with concern before taking her place at the altar. Then my father and I, arm in arm, standing at the threshold of the ceremony space, every head turned, every eye on me. Jake's face lit up with what looked like genuine joy and love. Ethan's expression more complicated. Happiness, yes, but shadowed with something darker. Guilt, perhaps, or fear. Good. He should be afraid. The walk down the aisle felt endless and instantaneous all at once. My father kissed my cheek and placed my hand in Jake's, then took his seat beside my tearful mother. Jake squeezed my fingers, whispering, "You look incredible." I smiled back, meeting his eyes directly. "So do you. Ready for this?" His answering grin was confident, oblivious. "Born ready." The officiant welcomed everyone, spoke about love and commitment and honesty, every word like a knife twisted deeper. I stood perfectly still, back straight, smile fixed, mentally reviewing each step of what was about to unfold. Before we proceed with the traditional vows, the officiant said right on cue, "I understand the bride has prepared something special she'd like to share." Jake looked surprised but pleased. He thought I was about to read personalized vows, something romantic and heartfelt that would make his mother cry happy tears into her lace handkerchief. I turned to face our guests, my expression serene. Patricia, watching from the back, gave an almost imperceptible nod. The lights dimmed slightly. A screen descended silently from the ceiling. "I do have something special to share," I said, my voice clear and steady, carrying to every corner of the hushed room. Something I've been working on for quite some time. I turned to look directly at Jake, then at Ethan, standing just behind him. A revelation, you might say. Jake's smile faltered. Ethan went completely still. I raised the small remote I'd been concealing in my bouquet and pressed a button. The screen illuminated. The show was about to begin. Everything that came next would change us all forever, and I couldn't wait. The screen flickered to life with a single line of text, a love story. The murmurs of confusion rippled through the crowd as soft music began to play. Our song, the one Jake and I had danced to on our first date. The screen transitioned to photos of us through the years. College graduation, our first apartment, holidays with both our families. Jake's grip on my hand tightened, his confusion evident but not yet alarming. He probably thought I'd created some sentimental slideshow, another bride's surprise for her groom. I gently pulled my hand from his and took one step to the side, just enough distance to see his face clearly when it happened. The music shifted, becoming discordant, jarring. The happy photos continued, but now with timestamps and dates in the corner of each image. Specific dates that would soon make terrible sense. Love is built on trust, I said into the sudden quiet, my voice steady and clear. On honesty, on loyalty. The images changed. Screenshots of text messages between Jake and Ethan. Nothing explicit yet, just suspicious. Too many late nights. Too many unexplained absences. All time-stamped, all corresponding with the work meetings and gym sessions. From my meticulous log, from the corner of my eye, I saw Jake stiffen, saw Ethan take a half step backward. I've always believed that when you truly love someone, you should know them completely. I continued, my voice carrying in the now silent room. Their hopes, their dreams, their secrets. The next slide appeared, a credit card statement with highlighted charges, hotel rooms, gifts I'd never received, a weekend trip I knew nothing about. Someone gasped. I think it was Jake's mother. Imagine my surprise, I said, turning slightly to face the audience rather than my increasingly pale groom, when I discovered there were so many secrets being kept from me, and by the two people I trusted most in this world. The next slides were the bank statements showing repeated cash withdrawals from Jake's account, followed immediately by deposits of the same amounts into Ethan's. Transactions going back 18 months. 18 months. While I'd been planning our wedding, while Ethan had been helping me choose invitations and tasting cakes. Jake, his father's voice called out from the front row. What is this? Jake didn't answer. Couldn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the screen, horror dawning as he realized what was coming next. What's that saying about a picture being worth 1,000 words? I asked, my tone almost conversational despite the chaos beginning to erupt. Well, I have more than just pictures. With another press of the remote, the video began. Not the explicit bedroom footage, I had more class than that, but a carefully edited compilation. Jake and Ethan entering our apartment together on days Jake had told me he was working late. The two of them in a restaurant, holding hands across a table in a private back corner. A kiss in the elevator of our building, caught by the security camera I'd requested footage from, claiming I'd lost a piece of jewelry. The sounds of shock crescendoed around us. My mother's "oh my god," cutting through the noise. Jake's sister's "what the actual fuck?" Someone was crying, probably his mother. Or mine? I didn't look. Couldn't look anywhere but at the two men whose faces had drained of all color. Jake, I said, finally addressing him directly. You once told me you'd never hurt me. His mouth opened and closed, no sound emerging. Ethan, I turned to my brother, whose eyes were wide with undisguised panic. You promised, literally promised, when I was 8 years old, that you'd always protect me. I tilted my head. Is this what protection looks like to you? Alice, Ethan finally managed, his voice strangled. This isn't... Don't. I cut him off. Don't insult me by lying. Not anymore. I faced our guests again, taking in their shocked faces, the hands covering mouths, the phones already lifting to capture the unfolding drama. I considered many options when I discovered my fiancé and my brother were having an affair behind my back. I announced, surprised by how calm I sounded. I could have canceled this wedding. I could have confronted them privately. I could have pretended I never knew. I paused, looking around the room. But then I thought about the vows we were about to make, for better or worse. In sickness and in health, forsaking all others. I smiled, and it felt sharp enough to cut. Honesty seemed important, don't you think? Everyone deserves to know exactly who they're celebrating today. Jake finally found his voice. Alice, please. I ignored him, pressing the remote again. The screen changed to show a document, the lease agreement for an apartment I'd discovered they'd rented together 3 months ago. An apartment they planned to move into after our honeymoon. "Oh, did I forget to mention?" I said, eyebrows raised in mock surprise. They weren't planning to end their relationship after the wedding. They were planning to continue it. Indefinitely. The murmuring turned to outright exclamations. Jake's father stood up, his face contorted with anger or shock or both. My father looked like he might be sick. My mother was halfway out of her seat, reaching toward me. "Alice," Jake tried again, reaching for my arm. "This isn't, you don't understand." I stepped back, evading his touch. "I understand perfectly. I understand that you were going to marry me while continuing to sleep with my brother. I understand that both of you have been lying to my face for at least 18 months. Probably longer." Ethan moved forward now, panic evident in every line of his body. "Alice, please, we can explain." "Explain?" I laughed, and the sound was alien even to my own ears. "Please do. Explain to everyone here how the best man has been sleeping with the groom. Explain to our parents why you thought this was acceptable. Explain to Jake's new clients." I gestured to a group of professionally dressed people in the back rows who looked utterly horrified, why they should trust a man who betrays his own fiancé. That was calculated and cruel, and I knew it. Those clients represented a huge account for Jake's firm, an account that would almost certainly be pulled after this. Just as I knew that the conservative family Ethan had been courting for his real estate business, seated near the front, their expressions a mix of shock and disgust, would never work with him now. Professional destruction on top of personal humiliation. I'd promised myself I would be thorough. Anyway, I continued, smoothing down the front of my dress. "I think we've established that there won't be a wedding today. The reception, however, will continue as planned." I turned to the bewildered officiant. "Thank you for your time, but your services won't be necessary." Then to our guests, "Please proceed to the ballroom. The open bar starts immediately, and frankly, I think we could all use a drink." I placed the remote carefully on the small table that had been meant to hold our unity candle and turned to leave. As I did, I caught sight of Mia's face, a mixture of horror and reluctant admiration. My parents looked shell-shocked. Jake's mother was openly sobbing. I felt a hand grab my wrist. Jake, his face a mask of desperation. "Alice, wait. Please. You can't just—" I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. "I can. I did. It's done. But I love you," he said, his voice breaking. And that nearly got me. Because part of me, some traitorous part that still remembered 8 years of what I'd thought was love, wanted to believe him. But then I glanced at Ethan, standing frozen behind Jake, and remembered exactly why we were here. "No," I said softly. "You really don't." I walked down the aisle alone, back straight, eyes forward, ignoring the whispers and stares. Patricia met me at the doors, professional as ever, but with a new respect in her eyes. "The ballroom is ready," she confirmed quietly. "And security is on standby as requested." "Thank you." I handed her an envelope. "For the staff. A bonus for handling all of this." She nodded, tucking it away without comment. Behind me, chaos had fully erupted. Jake's father was shouting. My mother was crying. Guests were standing, talking over each other, phones out, undoubtedly already posting to social media. Jake and Ethan remained at the altar, both looking like they'd been hit by a truck. I continued walking through the hotel's ornate lobby toward the ballroom where the reception was indeed set up and waiting. The massive wedding cake with the custom topper, the champagne fountain, the carefully arranged seating charts that I'd spent weeks obsessing over, now rendered meaningless. Mia caught up to me halfway there, grabbing my elbow and pulling me into an alcove. "Holy shit," she hissed, eyes wide. "Holy actual shit, Alice." I leaned against the wall, suddenly aware that I was trembling. The adrenaline crash, I supposed. Did I go too far? I asked, and was surprised to find I genuinely wanted to know. Mia considered this for a moment. "They were fucking each other behind your back for 1.5 years, planning to keep doing it after marrying you and stealing your money to rent their love nest." She shook her head. "No. You didn't go too far?" I nodded, relief washing through me. I'd been so deep in my plans, so focused on execution, that I'd almost lost perspective. "What now?" she asked. Good question. The revenge had consumed me so completely that I'd barely thought about what came after. "Now we drink. A lot. And tomorrow I'll figure out the rest of my life. Your parents are freaking out." "I know. I'll talk to them." I closed my eyes briefly. "Just not yet." Mia squeezed my hand. "I'll run interference." Go to the bridal suite. Take a minute." I nodded gratefully and slipped away, avoiding the main corridors where guests were now streaming toward the ballroom, the promise of an open bar and premium drama proving irresistible even under these circumstances. The bridal suite was blissfully empty. I locked the door behind me and stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the scattered evidence of a normal wedding morning: champagne glasses, makeup brushes, the garment bag that had held my dress. For the first time in weeks, I had no plan, no next step mapped out. The revenge that had consumed me was now complete, leaving a strange emptiness in its wake. I sank onto the edge of the bed, finally allowing myself to feel it all: the hurt, the rage, the vindication, and underneath it all, a profound loss. Not just of Jake, or of the brother I'd thought I had, but of the future I'd believed in. The certainty I'd built my life around. A knock at the door startled me. "Alice?" My father's voice, strained and uncertain. "Sweetheart, please open the door." I hesitated, then crossed to let him in. He stood there looking older than I'd ever seen him, his rented tux slightly rumpled, his eyes red-rimmed. "Dad, He pulled me into a hug so tight it almost hurt. "Why didn't you tell us?" he whispered against my hair. I closed my eyes, breathing in his familiar scent, aftershave, and the peppermints he always carried. I couldn't. Not until I had proof. Not until I knew what I was going to do. He held me at arm's length, studying my face. "This plan of yours, the presentation, how long have you been working on this?" 3 weeks. Since I found them together. He winced at that, pain flashing across his features. "In your home?" I nodded, unable to form the words. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, running a hand over his face. "Your mother is devastated." "Not about the wedding," he clarified quickly. "About what they did to you. About Ethan." Of course she was. Ethan had always been her pride and joy. Her firstborn. The successful son who could do no wrong. "Where is he?" I asked, surprised to find I actually wanted to know. Security escorted him and Jake out a side entrance. Patricia's orders, apparently. He almost smiled. "That woman is terrifyingly efficient." "Yes, she is." We stood in awkward silence for a moment. "I'm sorry about the venue deposit," I finally said. "I know it was expensive and non-refundable." My father made a dismissive gesture. "To hell with the money. I'm just sorry you went through this alone for 3 weeks. Planning all of that by yourself." I hadn't thought of it that way, as something I'd endured alone. I'd been so focused on my revenge that isolation had seemed necessary, even strategic. "I had Mia," I offered. "Sort of." She knew something was up, but not the details. "Well," he sighed heavily, "there's an open bar downstairs with my name on it. And about 200 people with questions I can't answer." He squeezed my shoulder. "What do you want me to tell them?" I considered this. "Tell them I'll be down shortly. That I'm just taking a moment." He nodded, kissed my forehead, and left. Alone again, I moved to the window overlooking the city. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the skyline. By now, videos of my wedding meltdown were probably circulating on social media, Wedding from Hell trending on Twitter. Tomorrow there would be consequences to face, explanations to give, decisions to make about apartments and possessions, and a life unraveled. But right now, in this moment, watching the sun sink below the horizon on the day that should have been the start of my married life, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won out. It was a photo of the ballroom taken just moments ago. The wedding guests clustered in groups, drinks in hand, faces animated in what was clearly shocked discussion. But it wasn't the guests that caught my attention. It was the large projection screen at the front of the room, the one meant for the traditional wedding photo slideshow during dinner. Someone had hijacked it to display a simple message in elegant script. "The bride will take your questions after this drink." Or possibly the next one. Below the image was a text. "Thought you might want to make an entrance." Champagne's chilled. Patricia, I laughed out loud, a real laugh, surprising myself with the sound. Yes, there would be questions, explanations, judgment from some, support from others. The story would be retold for years, exaggerated and distorted with each telling. But it would be my story. Not the sad tale of a woman betrayed and abandoned. Not the cautionary story of a jilted bride, but the account of someone who refused to be made a fool of, who chose exposure over silence, truth over comfortable lies. I checked my reflection in the mirror. My makeup was still flawless. Waterproof, everything had been a wise investment. I straightened my shoulders, adjusted my dress, and took a deep breath. Time to face my guests. Time to claim my narrative. Time to raise a glass to the spectacular ruins of what was supposed to be my wedding day and to whatever came next. I opened the door and headed toward the elevator, toward the murmur of voices and the clink of glasses, toward the first moment of my new, unwritten future. Behind me, the bridal suite door clicked shut with a finality that felt like the perfect ending to one chapter and the perfect beginning of the next. Downstairs, the elevator doors opened to reveal a corridor lined with curious staff members who quickly pretended to be busy with various tasks. I nodded politely as I passed, aware of their sidelong glances, their whispered comments. The ballroom doors loomed ahead, propped open to reveal glimpses of the reception in full swing, if you could call a wedding reception without a wedding in full swing. I paused just outside, gathering myself for what would undoubtedly be a dramatic entrance. Mia appeared at my side as if summoned, 2 champagne flutes in hand. "Thought you might need this," she said, offering me one. I took it gratefully. "How bad is it in there?" "Honestly, not as bad as you'd think." She took a sip from her own glass. "Half of them are Team Alice and ready to burn Jake and Ethan in effigy. The other half are still processing but leaning your way." She paused. "Except Jake's mom. She's not well." I winced. Linda had always been kind to me, had welcomed me into their family with genuine warmth. "Where is she?" "Jake's sister took her home. She left you a note, though." Mia produced a folded piece of paper from some hidden pocket in her bridesmaid dress. I hesitated before taking it, not sure I was ready for whatever it contained. But I'd faced worse today. I unfolded it carefully. "Alice," the note read in Linda's precise handwriting. "I don't understand what happened or why, but I know my son, and if he hurt you this way, he will have to live with the consequences. I'm sorry it ended this way. You deserved better." Linda, unexpected tears pricked at my eyes. I folded the note carefully and slipped it into my bodice, lacking anywhere else to put it. "You okay?" Mia asked, watching me closely. "No," I admitted. "But I will be." I squared my shoulders. "Let's do this." We entered the ballroom side by side, and a hush fell over the crowd as heads turned in my direction. For a moment, no one seemed to know what to do. Applaud? Offer condolences? Pretend nothing had happened? Then my college roommate Rachel, 3 drinks in by the look of her, raised her glass and called out, "To Alice!" Who throws the best non-wedding reception I've ever been to? A surprised laugh rippled through the crowd, followed by a chorus of glass raising and a hearty, "To Alice!" That seemed to break the tension. I moved through the room, accepting hugs and words of support, deflecting questions with vague responses about telling the full story later. My parents hovered nearby, my mother still looking shell-shocked but rallying admirably, my father keeping a protective hand at her elbow. The DJ, bless him, had abandoned the carefully curated wedding playlist in favor of what could only be described as breakup anthems. "I Will Survive" transitioned into "Truth Hurts" as I made my way to the head table, now half empty without Jake, Ethan, and the groomsmen who'd apparently left with them. Patricia intercepted me before I could sit down. "The hotel manager would like a word when you have a moment," she said discreetly. "About the, contract situation." "Right. The venue contract that almost certainly didn't cover bride exposes groom's affair with her brother and sends them packing. Now, if possible." He's concerned about social media coverage affecting the hotel's reputation. Of course he was. I nodded and followed her to a small office off the main ballroom, where a thin man with a harried expression waited. "Ms. Bennett," he began without preamble. "We find ourselves in an unusual situation. That's one way to put it. Our contract stipulates certain behaviors that could result in immediate termination of services," he continued, shuffling through papers. "Public disturbances, physical altercations, destruction of property, none of which occurred," I pointed out. "Unless you count destruction of relationships as property damage." He looked up, momentarily startled, then almost smiled. "No, we don't. But we do have concerns about the hotel being associated with such a dramatic event." "I understand. I'd anticipated this. That's why I've already authorized an additional payment." I nodded to Patricia, who produced another envelope. The manager opened it, eyebrows rising as he counted the contents. "This is generous. Consider it compensation for the unexpected publicity, which, I might add, showcases how professionally your staff handled an extraordinary situation." I gestured to Patricia, "Particularly your event coordinator." He glanced between us, clearly reassessing. "Well, in that case, we hope the rest of your evening is more pleasant than the ceremony portion." "Thank you." I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and the cake?" Make sure everyone gets some, especially the top tier. I paid extra for that flavor. Back in the ballroom, the party had evolved into something that felt less like a wedding reception and more like a very expensively catered support gathering. The seating chart had been abandoned, with guests clustering in natural groups. The dance floor remained empty, no one quite brave enough to be the first to dance at the non-wedding. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, social media tags, text messages from friends who weren't present, even a few calls that went straight to voicemail. I ignored them all. Tomorrow would be time enough to deal with the digital aftermath. The night continued in a surreal blur. I ate nothing but drank just enough to maintain a pleasant numbness. I danced with my father to what should have been our father-daughter dance, both of us teary-eyed but standing tall. I hugged friends I hadn't seen in years, accepted their shocked condolences, their angry support, their offers of places to stay and shoulders to cry on. Around midnight, as the crowd began to thin, I found myself at the edge of the dance floor, watching the remaining guests with a strange detachment. Mia appeared at my side, her makeup smudged, her bridesmaid dress slightly wrinkled. "So," she said, leaning against me slightly. "That happened." I laughed softly. Yes, it did. What's next? I considered the question. Sleep, for about a week. Then, I shrugged. I don't know. Start over, I guess. You know you can stay with me as long as you need. I know. I squeezed her hand gratefully. But I think I need to be alone for a while. Figure out who I am when I'm not defined by being Jake's fiancé or Ethan's sister. She nodded, understanding. Well, whoever that is, I'm betting she's pretty badass. The remaining guests began making their final rounds, saying goodbye, offering final words of support or shock or both. My parents approached, both looking exhausted but resolute. "We're heading home," my father said, embracing me. "Will you be all right?" "I'm staying in the bridal suite tonight," I confirmed. "As planned." My mother hugged me fiercely. "We'll talk tomorrow," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "About everything. About Ethan." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak about my brother. That wound was still too raw, too complicated. As the last guests departed, and the hotel staff began the discreet process of clearing the evidence of the non-wedding reception, I stood alone in the center of the ballroom. The space that had been meant to witness the beginning of my married life had instead seen the spectacular end of a relationship built on lies. Patricia approached, professional to the last. "The suite is prepared for you," she said. "And there's a bottle of the good scotch waiting. On the house." I smiled gratefully. "Thank you. For everything." She hesitated, then said quietly, "For what it's worth, I've coordinated over 300 weddings. I've seen it all. Fistfights between in-laws, brides running away, grooms passing out drunk." She met my eyes directly. "But I've never seen anyone handle betrayal with as much dignity and, frankly, style as you did today." Coming from this unflappable woman who had seen it all, the compliment meant more than she could know. "Well," I said, feeling suddenly shy, "I had excellent logistical support." She smiled, a real smile that transformed her professional demeanor. "Get some rest, Miss Bennett. And when you're ready to plan your next major event, hopefully something with less drama, you have my card." I made my way back to the bridal suite alone, the hotel eerily quiet at this late hour. The room had been tidied, the morning's chaos erased. My suitcase, packed for what was supposed to be my honeymoon, stood by the door, a silent reminder of plans now canceled. I slipped out of my wedding dress, hanging it carefully in the closet. I'd figure out what to do with it later, donate it maybe, or burn it in some symbolic ritual of cleansing. Tonight, I just wanted to be free of it. In the luxurious bathroom, I scrubbed away my makeup, watching as the perfect bridal facade washed down the drain. I caught my own reflection in the mirror, barefaced, eyes tired but clear, looking somehow both older and younger than I had that morning. Well, I told my reflection, that didn't go as planned, and then, unexpectedly, I started to laugh. A real laugh that bubbled up from somewhere deep inside, slightly hysterical but genuine. Because really, what else could you do when your wedding day turned into a public exposure of betrayal, your carefully constructed future crumbled to dust, and you found yourself alone in a bridal suite with nothing but a complimentary bottle of expensive scotch? You laugh, you drink the scotch, and you remind yourself that tomorrow is the first day of whatever comes next. I slipped into the plush hotel robe, poured myself a generous measure of scotch, and walked to the window. The city lights sparkled below, millions of lives unfolding in their own complicated patterns. Somewhere out there, Jake and Ethan were dealing with the consequences of their choices. Somewhere, the videos and stories of today's events were spreading through social media, creating a narrative I could no longer control. But that was okay. I'd told my truth. I'd refused to be silenced or shamed or made small by their betrayal. Whatever came next, the gossip, the judgment, the rebuilding, I would face it. I raised my glass to the city lights, to the uncertain future, to the woman I was becoming in the wreckage of who I'd been. To new beginnings, I whispered to no one but myself. And to the art of burning it all down? 3 months after destroying my wedding, my life had taken on an unexpected rhythm. Wake up, coffee, work, exercise, dinner, sleep, repeat. Simple, predictable. Nothing like the chaos that had defined those first few weeks after the incident. Yes, capital letters. It had earned its status as a proper noun. The morning after, I'd woken in that plush hotel suite with a Scotch hangover and 17 missed calls from reporters. Apparently, someone's wedding video had gone viral. Who would have thought? I'd checked social media exactly once before deciding that was a terrible idea. Wedding revenge and bride's best revenge were trending, with grainy cell phone footage showing my greatest hits from multiple angles. I'd turned my phone off, ordered room service, and spent the day alternating between crying jags and laughing fits that probably concerned the hotel staff. By Monday, I'd had no choice but to face reality, starting with my boss, who called before I'd even had coffee. "Alice," she'd said when I finally answered, "please tell me that wasn't you in the video that just crossed my desk." "I can't tell you that, Carol." A long pause. "The PR team is having kittens." "I bet." But off the record, her voice had softened. "Good for you." That had been the pattern. Official concern followed by private support. The neighbors who whispered as I moved my things out of the apartment I'd shared with Jake, then secretly slipped me bottles of wine with notes saying, "You're my hero." The client who rescheduled our meeting, due to the current situation, then sent flowers with a card reading simply, "My ex-husband did the same thing. I wish I'd had your courage." Not everyone was supportive, of course. Jake's family closed ranks around him, with the notable exception of his sister, who sent me a text that just said, "He always was a selfish prick. Call if you need anything." My own parents struggled with the dual shock of their daughter's canceled wedding and their son's betrayal. Family dinners became complicated algebra problems of who could be in the same room with whom. Ethan tried to see me once. Showed up at Mia's apartment where I was staying looking like he hadn't slept in days. I watched through the peephole as he knocked, called my name, finally slid an envelope under the door before leaving. The letter inside was 10 pages of explanation, justification, and apology that boiled down to, "We didn't mean for it to happen. We never wanted to hurt you. We love each other. We love you too." I burned it in Mia's kitchen sink while she cheered me on. Jake was more persistent. Calls, texts, emails. Even flowers, as if roses could erase betrayal. He wanted to explain, to make amends, to be forgiven. I blocked his number and set up email filters that sent his messages directly to a folder labeled Audacity. I never opened them. By month 2, things had settled into a new normal. I'd found my own apartment, a studio in a part of town I'd always liked, but Jake had considered too artsy. I'd taken a 2-week leave from work, then returned to find I'd become something of an office legend. The marketing department even referenced pulling an Alice when discussing particularly bold campaign strategies. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. The social media storm had largely blown over, though occasionally someone would recognize me at a coffee shop or grocery store, their double take and widened eyes telling me exactly which video they'd seen. I'd developed a standard response, a small, enigmatic smile and a slight nod. Yes, that was me. No, I won't be discussing it with strangers. My parents had finally stopped walking on eggshells around me. We'd established a careful routine. Sunday dinners at their house, just the 3 of us. Ethan's name was rarely mentioned, though I knew they still saw him separately. My mother had cried when I'd firmly stated this boundary. My father had simply nodded and said, "Whatever you need, sweetheart." What I needed, it turned out, was time. Time to untangle 8 years of memories, sorting through which ones were real and which were tainted by deception. Time to rediscover who I was when I wasn't defined by my relationship. Time to be angry, to grieve, to heal. "Have you thought about dating again?" Mia asked one night over takeout and wine, 3 months to the day after the non-wedding. I nearly choked on my pad thai. "Are you insane?" "Just checking." She grinned. "The guy from legal keeps asking about you. The one with the bow ties? He's cute in a nerdy way. I shook my head. Not ready, not even close. And I wasn't. The thought of trusting someone again made my stomach knot, but I was surprised to find I wasn't bitter, at least not about love itself. Just about the specific men who had perverted it, which is why I was so surprised to find myself crying on this particular Tuesday morning. Nothing special about Tuesdays, remember? I was getting ready for work, just a normal day, when I caught sight of my reflection and suddenly couldn't breathe through the tears. It took me a moment to understand why. I looked happy, rested. The dark circles that had been my constant companions for months were gone. My eyes were clear. I looked like myself again, but not the self from before. Someone new, someone stronger. I called in sick, then spent the day walking through the city, thinking about everything and nothing. I ended up at the park where Jake had proposed, expecting to feel sadness or anger. Instead, I felt something like peace. The bench where he'd knelt was just a bench. The memory, just a memory. It no longer had power over me. That evening, I did something I'd been avoiding. I opened my laptop and typed "wedding video" into the search bar. Hundreds of results, most with sensational headlines: "Bride exposes cheating fiancé and brother at wedding." "Ultimate wedding revenge, most savage bride ever." I clicked on one at random and watched myself on that day, back straight, voice steady, methodically dismantling the lies that had nearly become my life. The comments section was a battleground of opinions ranging from "Queen" to "This is why you discuss things privately like adults." I closed the laptop, oddly at peace. Let them debate. Let them judge. They'd witnessed a single moment in my life, albeit a spectacular one, but they knew nothing about the quiet strength it had taken to rebuild afterward. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Just checking in. Love you." I replied, "Love you too. I'm okay. Really okay." And I was not perfect. Not over it. There would still be days when grief ambushed me, when anger flared hot and bright, when the betrayal felt fresh all over again. But those days were becoming fewer. People keep asking if I regret it, the public exposure, the dramatic confrontation, burning it all down instead of quietly walking away. I don't, not for a second. In destroying what was false, I'd found something true. Myself, standing in the ashes, unbroken. The wedding industry talks constantly about your special day, the day that changes everything, the beginning of your real life. They're not entirely wrong. That day did change everything for me, just not in the way anyone expected. It wasn't the beginning of my life as a wife, but it was the beginning of something equally important, my life as exactly who I am, uncompromised, unbowed. So here's to new beginnings, to standing in your truth even when it hurts, to knowing your worth and refusing to accept anything less. And if someone tries to make you settle for less, well, I might know a thing or two about handling that.